Welcome back to the Discovering Commercial Real Estate podcast. We have President of PD Properties, Elad Dror, here with us today. Since founding PD Properties, Elad has worked in the acquisition, financing, asset management, and sales of over $1 billion of real estate throughout the United States and Europe. He's also been involved in the leasing of over 500,000 square footage of commercial real estate throughout New York and Seoul. Elad manages the day-to-day operations for the firm and oversees new business development. Elad also oversees the property management division, which started in 2014, and manages residential and commercial properties in Manhattan. Prior to starting PD, Elad worked at the Moinian Group for 11 years, where he served as the director of residential assets. And in this position, he oversaw asset management, leasing, strategy, and the sales portfolio of over $800 million in closed sales, and managed approximately 2,500 luxury retail apartments. Elad, thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to do this.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Amazing. And before we get into business, let's get a little sense of your background. So where are you from and why did you get into the industry?
I was born in Israel. I grew up in Queens till I was 9. My family then moved to Manhattan. I went to high school in Manhattan. I went to Baruch College. Okay. While I was studying in Baruch College, my parents, as you know, good immigrant Persian parents, said that I should be working while I was in school. My background, my family's Persian. We were part of the Persian Jewish community that was in Manhattan. We have a close family friend, Joe Moinian, who was kind enough to offer me a part-time job while I was at school. Not just myself, but other friends and family that were in the community. He took a few of us under his wing and gave us all an opportunity. So I started working part-time for him while I was in school, going to school 2 days a week, going to work 3 days a week, or vice versa, going to school 3 days a week and working 2 days a week. I did that from my sophomore year of college through senior year, and once I'd graduated, it turned into a full-time opportunity. I got very lucky.
Amazing. And so Moinian Group is a world-renowned firm. How would you recommend a young professional look to break into such a firm like this?
Again, first and foremost, I was very lucky from having a family connection.
Right.
I think if somebody has the opportunity or any connection through family or friends, or something like that, to have the opportunity to reach out and ask for an opportunity or a recommendation or any help you can get that way, I think that's first and foremost the best way to go about. If you're in school, whether or not you excel, you speak to your professors, you reach out, you be aggressive, and really just keep putting yourself out there and reaching out there to try to get the opportunity.
Amazing. So your network is really where you kind of start and really where you get the best opportunities from.
For everyone, not for me. Your network is really what gets you ahead.
100%. 100%. And how did your experience in residential assets at the Moinian Group prepare you to be a president and a principal?
While I was working at Moinian, I was lucky enough to have a job with a lot of responsibilities. Overseeing a management team, a leasing team, the staffing of the building. There were already standard operating procedures that were put in place before I was there. So when I got that job, there was already stuff in place that I knew the systems and how everything needed to be implemented. We had weekly meetings that we'd go over lease renewals, pricing, upcoming vacancies, meeting leasing brokers outside of our in-house leasing team to understand where pricing is headed, to understand where the market is. Just doing that and going over, working with different teams and being able to manage it or manage those teams helped me, be able to become a manager and a founder of a brokerage firm.
Amazing. So you think you had a very diverse experience within all aspects of the business, and this is kind of what prepared you to be a dynamic individual as a principal and as a founder.
Yeah, I would say, having that experience of managing people at a young age and having a lot of responsibility that was given to me. I was, again, very lucky to have it, but yeah, it definitely helped.
And you managed everything all at once, or was it like you kind of went through phases where you kind of focused on asset management and then you focused on other things?
So the originally, I'd say I was working on the rental portfolio. There were already rental buildings that were in place, that were built, and we were just, going over the regular, again, like I said, the renewals, the leasing, any issues with the building, any capital improvement projects. But then Joe started developing more ground up development. So interesting part of that was being in the pre-development meetings, meeting with the architects, meeting with the consultants, understanding, what you should build for certain neighborhoods, what type of apartments. A few of them were 80-20 buildings, learning about that and understanding how that process worked was very interesting. So getting into the development part or pre-development part was really interesting. That was sort of, I'd say, the second part of what I did. And then obviously once the building was leased and it was, stabilized, you just go back to the original plan that you already had working. And then later on, while I was working there, Joe decided to develop some condos. The condo market was very hot, booming at the time. Excuse me. And so he did 3 condo projects at the time. 20 West Street, which was the former downtown athletic club. Atelier at 635 West 42nd Street, which was about just under 500 apartments. And the W New York downtown at 123 Washington, which was just over 200 hotel rooms and 223 condominiums above. So towards the latter part of my time there, I was focusing on the condominium of the business.
Amazing. And how would you say, how important have your sales skills been throughout your commercial real estate career? And would you say this is kind of what set you apart from the competition?
Sales skills are not just important for me. It's important for everyone.
Right.
No matter what industry you're in, or no matter what you're doing, you're always selling, whether or not you understand. For example, you reached out to me about this podcast.
Right.
You sold yourself, and you sold this podcast, and you were good at it. I sell and lease real estate. Dad sells diamonds.
Right.
But no matter what, whether if you're an accountant, right, and you try to get the business, you have to sell yourself. Granted, yes, you have relationships, but you're constantly selling. So sales is the most important part of the business. How do we differentiate ourselves? As a business, I have a partner, Tony Park, who's Korean. Excuse me. I have another partner, Francesco Bardazzi, who's Italian. I think we created a bit of a niche business in how we sell ourselves to owners and operators and sellers, explaining to them that we can bring different type of buyer, different type of client to the market that a lot of people don't necessarily have access to.
Right.
There's obviously a big pool of buyers and renters here, and companies that are leasing, and everyone fights over that pool. Not to say that nobody fights for the pool of international buyers that we have, but we at least have boots on the ground, people over there, connections, direct connections. And how do I differentiate myself? My style is just being honest. I don't mess around. I don't come up with inflated numbers. I tell people, what the numbers are, and this is how it is, and this is how I see it happening. And I just try, I'm honest with what I sell.
Amazing. And I want to ask about your grad school experience at Baruch. So you did your master's in real estate development. What prompted you to make this decision? And looking back, do you think it was worth it?
I decided to do it. It was around the time where I think Lehman collapsed. The economy was going in directions that nobody knew what was happening. I still had a job, but I wanted to expand my horizons. There were certain things, doing what I did. I was so focused on one part of the business. I'd say that there were certain things or skills or skill set that I didn't have that I wanted to get. understanding even more about development, law, modeling, understanding how to look at a deal and analyze a deal properly. That time, we were going over CMBS loans and learning that, and I wasn't exposed to I'd say so much of the financing side. So I'd say on that it was very helpful.
Great.
And I'm sure you hear this all the time, but the people you meet, the connections you make, the network you create, again, whether it's students or professors or teachers, is great. It's something that I think everyone needs to always look at how to expand their network. For me, I met a couple of people in that program that were great, that I'm still in touch with, that we try to do deals with. I have one specific friend who, I speak to him every other week, and we share deals and try to work together, and we meet for lunch, once a month, once every 2 months. He's a close friend of mine, and it worked out great.
That's amazing.
The connections you make are key.
That's great. And would you recommend somebody do this straight out of college, do a program like this, or kind of get a couple years of experience under their belt and then do the program?
There's no better experience than getting real life work experience. Yep. So I'm a big advocate of getting a job and working and learning there. No matter what, you'll always learn more being on the job or doing the job than you will in school.
Of course.
So I would recommend somebody get a job, start working, learn what you want, see what you like, see what's interesting to you, and use the school, the secondary schooling as to see how you can complement, what you're missing, help you and just expand, what you're working on, and expand your horizons.
Amazing. And what do you think you'd be doing career-wise if not commercial real estate?
I think finance. I studied finance in school at that time. I'd say around the time I was in college, everyone was in finance, but my generation of, people graduating was when people started getting more into real estate, and private equity real estate. People were syndicating more and more deals at that time. I'd say it was the late 90s, early 2000s. But I think something, related
within
to Wall Street. Everyone was buying stocks. Obviously, there was a big .com bubble and crash at that time, which made everybody, lose a lot of money. But everyone was just following the stock market at the time. It was the big interest.
100%. Yeah.
I think that.
Great. And how did you learn the skills associated with being a leader? Is this something you were born with, or is this something you developed as you went through your career?
I'd say both. Being a leader sometimes means, putting yourself out there, being the first one to do something, taking chances, standing up against the current, or standing up against, what you think is wrong. It depends what type of leader, what type of position you're in. I was, I guess, captain of my high school teams, whatever I played in, always. And I wasn't the best player, but I don't know. I think I cared the most. I put the most into it. I cared about other people.
Took responsibility.
I always took responsibility. I always put myself, I put the team first, but I put myself out there. I left everything on the line. So I'd say it was, I don't know, I guess it's a little natural and a little you learn on the way. And that sort of transfers and carries over to business.
Yep.
And so some of the things you constantly learn on the way as you do it. But as a good leader, you also have to make sure that you listen to the people that you work with, understand what their goals are. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing what they want, but you have to understand, what your team is looking for. You have to put a straight, a direction, a message of where you're looking to go, and a game plan of how to get there.
Great. And how important do you think it is to be kind and gentle as a leader and still prevent yourself from, still establish that sense of authority within your company?
I think it's important to be kind. I mean, I've dealt with, I've seen, dealt with, a lot of people who, everyone has been kind. There's no one that comes in and just, decides to, I don't want to use bad language, no one wants to come in and just be, grumpy and like that. Everyone wants to be a kind leader and a fair leader, but you still need to be demanding. There is a fine line. I sometimes, people try to take advantage of my kindness, and I let it go sometimes. But at a certain point, you have to really just be firm and say, listen, don't overtake my kindness. Right. Don't take advantage of my kindness by thinking that you can
walk all over me.
Walk all over me. Exactly. It's not the way it is. You 100%. Need to do it this way, and if you don't agree and you don't want to do it, then this might not be the right place for you.
100%. And what's the best way to fire someone, but also kind of help them improve?
My uncle worked on 47th Street in the jewelry business, and he told me a story once. It's funny. It just came to my head that you brought this up. That he caught a kid that was working for him stealing, I don't know, some jewelry or diamond or something like that. I remember he told me this. I was probably in high school or something. It was like, did you call the police? Did you, fire him? What'd you do? Did you get him arrested? And he's like, no. He's like, I sat him down. I explained to him why what he's doing is wrong. He didn't give him a second chance. He wasn't like, you're going to be working here, but he really just tried to take it as a learning opportunity or teaching opportunity for the kid because he was younger. He did fire him, but at the end of the day, he explained to him, that he could have been ruining his life or doing something not right. So I take that as a message. If I fire someone, there's obviously a reason why. But having said that, you don't want bad or something wrong for someone. Right. You want what's best for someone. So you explain to them, it didn't work out for this reason. I wish you luck wherever you go, but just so you know, in my opinion, you need to focus on XYZ for your next endeavor.
Construction criticism.
Yeah.
And what's the learning curve in this business? How long does it take for someone to really get it and be able to originate and close their own deals?
There's no real, if you give me a timeline, I'd say somebody needs to invest, a year to two to really get and understand the business. Some people could just be natural salespeople. Some people just have, a crazy amount of connections where somebody will be like, okay, you're doing this. I'm going to give my business to you. And he'll just pass it on to the guy that executes everything, and he'll just get commissions. Easy. But to really understand the canvassing, the cold calling, the obtaining clients from A to Z, I'd say, and really be able to transact and understand what you're doing properly, I'd say it's about a year to 2 years.
Got it. Great. And do you think a broker should start out as an analyst to kind of understand exactly what they're doing before they move into originations, or should they move directly into originations?
I wouldn't say an analyst, specifically, but you need to know what you're selling. You need to understand, the X's and O's or the numbers behind a real estate deal. You can't just tell somebody, oh, this is a great deal because it's a whatever cap, and it's just it doesn't work that way. You need to understand why. You need to understand if the rents are inflated or not. You need to understand if there's upside. You need to understand if they need to invest additional money in the deal to make it work. To just be able to come in and say, oh, I have this great deal, and not be able to explain why, I don't think it will work. So I don't think you have to be an analyst, but you need to at least understand what you're doing.
100%. And how do you maintain good relationships with other brokers and other brokerage firms to encourage future collaborative business?
Honesty. Don't overpromise. Tell everyone how it is. I have XYZ client. Let's work together. Do a couple of deals first, gain the trust. But, always just be honest. If you have someone, if your guy's not going to come through or he's shaky, you gotta tell them. A lot of my close friends in life are other brokers, and just we trust each other. And sometimes they'll send me a deal that they don't put on the market,
Right.
just knowing that they could trust me, and they know. And I'll tell them in the beginning, I'll say, listen, I have, they'll say I have a deal, and I'll say, listen, I know who your buyers are. My buyers are different. Send me this deal, and I will tell you before I send this deal who I'm going to send it to. So as long as you have that trust level between yourself and another broker, I think.
And a way to get there is to be 100% honest upfront with everything, all negotiations, every business transaction.
Just be honest. Just be upfront. Come through with what you say. Don't mess around. Don't break the trust, because if you break the trust once on a broker or someone, there's not going to be much of a reason for them to deal with you.
100%. What do you think is the secret to effective negotiation?
There's many different type of negotiators, depending where in the world you're from.
Right.
But in reading books, about famous or very successful business entrepreneurs or business leaders, in real estate and in other types of businesses, and seeing firsthand how people negotiate, I think you really have to understand, again, what the other side wants, what makes them happy, what's their reason for transacting, what will make them want to transact.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it's price, fine, but there's something
Other factors
behind price. And once you're able to solve that issue for them, I think it gets you ahead of the game.
Amazing.
Ahead of other people.
Great. What personality traits and what skill sets would you say, let's say somebody's in high school right now, what should they work on to prepare themselves for what they're about to come against in their career?
You need to be prepared to work hard. Hard work. I don't know. I just, I see, I don't know if it's just from what I see or what I read, but it seems like millennials just like to be behind their phones or on the computer, and you see these people working in tech and working from home and not really, getting to travel while they're working. I guess if it works, but really you need to really be prepared to work hard, to put in the hours, to wake up early, to work long days, not take lunch, come home late. I'm not saying don't go out with your friends after, don't have a good time, but you need to really, you want to be successful, you really have to work hard.
100%.
What else?
And do you think it's a problem with entitlement with the new generation, that they think that they kind of deserve success without actually having to put in the work?
I don't know if it's a sense of it. Yeah, maybe a little bit. It's a sense of entitlement, but it's what they see. It's people see. I don't know. I see all these. I'm not on TikTok, but I see all these TikToks of people walking around saying, "This is what I do in the Facebook office," and those. It's you could see people are now getting. Elon Musk is coming to Twitter, and he just took out 75-80% of the staff because he realized that they weren't doing anything. So. If these other tech companies catch on, then, people are going to start having to get, I wouldn't say real job. Obviously it's a real job, but people are going to have to start understanding that this isn't real life. You really have to work. You want to get ahead, you have to work no matter what you're doing. You have to work hard. You have to be there. You have to put yourself out there. You have to care, and not just work hard, but work smart, but you really have to work hard.
100%. And I wanna find out how you kind of got the confidence to start your own firm, PD Properties. So what shifted where you decided, you know what, I'm gonna do this by myself. I'm gonna start PD Properties.
A lot of it had to do with timing. Again, it was around the time of the Great Recession. Lehman had collapsed. Real estate was pretty slow. I was still single. I felt like it was time to make a career move. The question was, would I go to a different firm? Would I start off on my own? And really, it was just a matter of taking a chance and saying this was the right time. I don't have any other responsibilities. I'm single. I don't have a wife. I don't have a family. I could try it out on my own now. If it works, God willing, great. If it doesn't, then I'll figure it out and I'll go somewhere. I'll try to find a job somewhere else. but it was about taking the chance. It was the timing was right. Thank God it worked out.
Great.
I haven't looked back.
And if somebody wants to do exactly what you did and kind of be an entrepreneur and start their own company, do you suggest that they do that straight out of college and kind of learn as they go? Or should they work at a big shop for a couple of years, get the experience under the belt, get their connections under the belt, and then do it?
I think to each his own, but if I would suggest, if you can, you get a job first, you learn with someone, you have a mentor that's going to help you, that's going to teach you. You're, around people, you can talk to people. And it's not just talking to, a great boss or a very successful boss. It's going to a meeting. It's getting to speak to a plumber, a contractor, a broker. Having that access to all these consultants and professionals that have been in the industry for longer than you is very helpful. People generally seem to talk to you or be more willing to talk to you if you work for a big firm than if you're just starting out on your own. I'm not saying that someone shouldn't, but while working at a big firm or working at a firm, I don't, again, and if you have a job, you need to focus on your job. That's really, you're committed somewhere, you have to work. But that's not to say that you shouldn't be thinking about your future while you're at that job. Or even currently, you work in real estate, you work for any company, not even a real estate company. You work for, Google or Ernst & Young or whatever in the jewelry business. You should be thinking, okay, how do I invest my money? How do I learn to invest my money into real estate, into something passive, into a tangible asset that, long-term will make money for me when I'm just sitting down and working and, I have rent coming in. So you should always be looking and understanding how you can do that even while you're at your main job.
So always be creative about what's the best next step for me for my career to be effective and really propel me forward.
Yeah, I'm in the now. I understand that I have this job right now and I'm going to give it my all for as long as I'm here. But if I'm here and I want to be, up here or in this location in this part of my life in 5 years, what do I need to do over the next 3-4 years with, my skill set, what I'm learning, what I'm understanding, what I want to do, and how is what I'm doing now going to help me get to where 100%. I want to be?
Great. And so walk us through what PD Properties is. What's the long-term vision for this company, and what gap did you fill in the market with this company?
Let's start with what PD Properties is or started out as, and then ask me the rest of the questions again so I don't forget. Okay. PD Properties is a small, I'd say a boutique real estate and advisory firm that was founded by myself and my partner, Tony Park. We started off focusing on the local New York community, and again, everything changes, and thank God it's worked well, but I'll tell you how we started and where we're getting to. Tony's background was actually in the ATM machine company and credit card processing. He had a lot of access to retailers because he was supplying the retailers with ATMs and doing their credit card merchant processing. He knew who wanted to open new stores. He knew what stores' numbers were. He understood that, this store on 27th and 7th was making XYZ. So he was able to convert those clients into retail clients. At the same time, I had a lot of connections through, my job, through networking, through my network of knowing a lot of landlords. So we said we would, start a brokerage company that way. Our focus was originally on, Korean retailers from his community. And we started off with leasing. From leasing, we went to, you could, if you're a retailer and you buy a building with vacant retail, you can put your retail in and get an SBA loan, a small business administration loan. And you could buy the building and own the building, collect rent from tenants upstairs and pay your mortgage instead of rent. So we kept that. We started doing commercial sales as well. We were bringing clients we were working with clients from Korea that were looking to open as well. So that sort of opened up the Korean door, the international door for us. Francesco then joined us a few years later. Francesco is from Florence, and he started working with, the Italian expats here, and, all the Italian restaurateurs and businessmen that were looking to open and expand, started coming to him. So we had, sort of the Korean desk and the Italian desk. Right. We had a Chinese person that was the Chinese desk, and we still work. We don't have currently a Chinese broker, but we still have, a Chinese desk, right. I'd say, of clients that we work with. And while doing that, we also had some relationships with high net worth individuals, foreigners, and Korean institutions that were looking to invest either in debt and equity deals in New York and in the gateway cities. Tony and I flew out to Korea a few times. We met some of the institutional clients that we had, and through another friend of mine or a connection that I made of someone that I worked with at Moinian, we were able to, do some deals with the Korean institutions in the United States, brought their equity here. Additionally, just, how funny stuff is, having the institutional relationships in Korea, we actually did a couple of WeWork leases in Seoul, and we were the company that did the first 2 or 3 WeWork leases in Seoul office districts. Yeah, in Seoul.
So you brought WeWork to South Korea.
Yeah, we helped. Well, I mean, the real estate team did, but we made the introductions. We were out there. Tony was out there with them for about 2 weeks, touring Seoul, all the different areas and locations, introducing them to large landlords, showing them, the Class A buildings over there. And
amazing, great. And what's the long-term vision for this company?
I'd say we'd like to, our bread and butter has always been, what we started off with, but we'd like to expand, get bigger. We'd like to do more, both institutional work, continue to do institutional work, do some larger deals or focus on larger deals. I'm not saying that we won't do the previous deals that we did. We're just, working with other new hires, and we're actually, in this crazy time, we're expanding our team to be able to focus on larger deals. Additionally, we're planning, and we started acquiring some stuff together, and I think our long-term plan is also to get more on the principal side.
Amazing. And how do you go about setting goals for yourself and for your company?
For myself, just, writing down where I want to be, thinking where I want to be, what my plan is, again, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years. What do I want to do? Not just deal-wise, life-wise, family-wise, but business-wise, it's, what's my goal and where do I want to be? Do I want to be a broker the rest of my life? Probably not. Do I want to be on the principal side more? Yes, that's where I aim to be and strive to be, and that's the goal that I'm working on.
Great. And what's your relationship with struggle in your life? Do you avoid it or do you embrace it?
Honest answer, I'd say both. I try to avoid it, but it catches up to you.
Right.
So you're better off just facing it head on. Struggle is natural. Failure is natural. You have to embrace it.
Right.
And when I was in high school, I remember that we had one team I was on, and it was like the first time ever that this team never made the playoffs.
Right.
and the senior, my friend, came up to me and he said, "Always remember, all success is built upon failure."
Right.
Excuse me. And that sort of stayed in my head. You have to embrace it. You can't run away from it. I saw this clip on YouTube of Denzel Washington speaking at some commencement speech, and he said, if you haven't failed, you haven't been trying hard enough.
Right.
And you really have to take that mentality. It's like you have to push your limit and accept failure, because that's when you'll reach the limit of where you want to be.
That's where growth is.
That's where your growth is.
Right.
So you have to keep pushing. You didn't get this deal for some reason, okay?
Right.
It sucks. Understand why. Understand what you need to do. Understand that you'll call someone and he'll hang up on you 10 times, and maybe on the 11th time you'll catch him on a good day.
Right.
Sorry.
So you think that when people reach this point, this breaking point, that's kind of really where they make their biggest growth experience. That's kind of really where they learn the most.
Yeah, I mean, if something just comes easy for you, you're never going to be learning, right? You're
Right.
just going to think it comes easy, and that's in everything in life. So,
Right.
you're probably going to reach out to a few hundred people to
Right.
try to do this podcast, and some people won't respond. And you're not just going to accept that you're not going to respond because you don't
Right.
have a podcast. So
Right.
you're going to keep reaching out to these
Exactly.
people until you get it. And that's what you have to do. You just can't accept it.
Persistency, for sure. So I want to ask about your opinion on New York City. What neighborhood do you think has the most potential right now in New York City?
I don't know if it has the most potential per se, but you really see a lot of. I mean, the potential was there. I really think the Upper East Side, since they put the Second Avenue subway, really transformed. I personally grew up there, so I have a bias towards it. But if you see just the amount of new development going up there, the quality of the development,
Right.
the type of developments that are going up there are really beautiful buildings, really high-end stuff. The restaurateurs or the retailers that would never be caught dead on the Upper East Side are
Right.
all pushing to get there right
Flocking
now.
there, yeah.
There's lines at the door on for great restaurants, for great retail. I think the pandemic obviously really helped the retailers up there as well. Obviously, the subway access helped the Upper East Side, but just on a development side, I'm not saying it's the most potential, but I just see a lot going on there right now that's very interesting.
Got it. And let's say there's a weak market going on. Let's say there's a bad market. How do you make money in a bad market?
There isn't a bad market now, but if there isn't, there is. But
Right.
it's probably going to get a little worse before
Right.
it gets better. I think an immediate example that you can really look at is COVID, and business was going well, and then just one day just fell off a cliff.
Right.
And there were certain people and companies that really grabbed the bull by the horns and said, I'm not going to sit at home. I'm not just going to accept this. I'm going
Right.
to really hustle even more. And people did that. And I think it was a great example of some companies that just literally called every retailer and just moved them around and
Right.
did a ton of deals. And you just have to remain aggressive. Someone the other day came to my office and like, you know what? I just hope I get a couple of big deals done, and then I could just sit on the side while the recession or the bad market comes. I said, that's not the way to look at it. You really have a real opportunity to succeed and make a lot of money,
course.
but you really have to put your time and effort into it. My partner Tony, again, just using him as an example, on a real estate end, we were in the city every day. We were still going into the office even in March and April when there was a closure. And he'd be like, "Hey, Elad, come look at this deal. Come check out this deal." I'm like, "Tony, what are you talking about? Like, who's gonna occupy this building right
Right.
now?" And he's like, "No, we should buy it. It's really cheap." And on that one, he bought it on his own, and he's filled up the building already.
Right.
So you have to be opportunistic and think of where there's an ability for you to make money, but in a down market, you have to think opportunistically, and you have to find that's where people really make money. That's where you make
Great.
real money.
Yep. So in the hardest times in the market, that's really where the opportunities kind of present themselves.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to take advantage of
You
them.
have to take
quickly.
advantage of it. I mean, you need to have some sort of equity or cash behind you,
Right.
but yeah, you need to find the deals and get into them.
100%. What has been the most difficult point in your career, and how did that shape you as an individual from that point on?
I think there are a couple times. One obviously was COVID. Again, business was great. You're living in city with on the Upper East Side, and
Right.
3 kids, and business is rolling, and then suddenly there's a closure, and you're like,
Yeah,
oh my
just like
God,
that.
well, what am I gonna do?
Yeah.
I'd say that was a really tough time. I still again went to the office every day, and I'd call, and we did a couple of deals, mostly small deals, but we kept busy. But it gave us an opportunity to also, expand our Rolodex. I think everyone was bored, so everyone was willing to speak to anyone
Right.
about business and about everything. So we were able to, expand our network, more connections. I think the other time was, when I made the decision to start on my own. It was just, it was a real risk, and, you didn't know where it was going to go, and, you can have a plan, and you plan well, and, either it happens or, they say you plan and God laughs.
Right.
But,
Exactly.
that I'd say taking that risk of going off on your own is a big risk. But, if you put the time and the work in, God willing, it works out. And, if you need luck too, it's not just hard work. You need luck. And I'd say, it worked out. Thank God.
Amazing. Great. And your business partner, Tony, walk us through the story of how you guys met and how you guys decided to kind of work together.
I was working at Moinian at the time. I was working on the W downtown. And it was, again, around the time Lehman collapsed. The financial world was up on its head. There was no sales. In Manhattan, no one was buying anything. There was nothing really going on. And in came Tony to the sales office and said, I'm going to sell these 5 apartments for you. I said, no, you're not, but great.
Right.
I'd love to see it. And he said, within 2 weeks, I'm going to sell it. And he came back 2 weeks later, lo and behold, with 5 contracts and checks.
Wow.
And so we just started speaking. And again, he has an interesting background. At the time, he owned a very hot nightclub. So, we started hanging out, and we went to Korea together to try to sell the building to an institutional partner. So we got comfortable with each other. And just, while we spoke and understood that, there's potential for us to do stuff together. The market, again, was just dead. There wasn't much going on.
Right.
It wasn't immediate. It took about, I think, like a year and a half or 2 years for us to get something done. But that's how we originally met, and we just decided to try something. It wasn't like this is going to be exactly what our business is. It was, hey, let's
do something,
try something, and let's see where it goes.
Right, 100%. And how do you vet business partners? What's a telling sign that you shouldn't work with someone?
I think the main thing with a business partner is you need to know you can trust them.
Yep.
For the beginning, or the first, long time of our partnership, mine and Tony's partnership was based off of a handshake. We had to put it in writing down the line for certain reasons, which was nothing against not trusting each other. Just it made sense. But having that ability to trust someone blindly off of a handshake, knowing that you're going to be there for him, he's going to be there for you, is how I would say. I don't know what not to look for is someone. If you can't trust the person blindly like that, just you shouldn't be partners with them.
Right, 100%. And do you think it's important to kind of watch how people keep their word and how people act and not what people say?
Yeah, actions speak louder than words. It's cliche to say that,
right,
but it's really true. You need to see what people are. You need to see what people are doing when you're not around, or you need to hear what people are like when you're not around, to make sure that they're not just putting on a show or putting on a face. And I'll give you that advice. You need to make sure when you're going to find the wife that's the same thing also. But
100%.
But yeah, just in general, a partner, a life partner, a business partner. Yeah, it's all the same. You got to look at it the same way.
Got it. And who were your role models and people you looked up to when you were coming up in the industry?
See, the main person was Joe, because I was around him all the time, and I got to see him in action every day. It's an amazing story. He came here to the country as. Hope you interview him and he tells you the story, but he came here as a young immigrant on his own without his family, and went into the fashion business and started buying real estate from his money in the fashion business. And from buying real estate, some people just buy and sell and operate real estate, but he actually took it a step further and a step up and and became a developer and has developed some amazing buildings in the city. So, being there for part of that story was great. And, he was a great teacher and definitely a great role model, someone to look up to in what he's accomplished and done.
And how important was that mentorship and that relationship between you and Joe? And do you think this is what gave you most of your skills that you have today?
Being there definitely gave me a certain skill set that helped me in my career and life. Seeing how he handled and navigated certain situations was definitely good to see and a great learning experience. You don't just learn from one person or one place. You have to look at everything as a learning experience. You have to speak to people and just reach out for advice.
Right.
Talk to people. People want to help.
Right, of course.
Older people want to help younger people and show them the ropes and just help people succeed. So there's always going to be haters out there and people, but in general, people want to help. So always reach out, always try. Send letters, send emails, cold emails, whatever. Can you meet me for coffee for 15 minutes? Do you have time for a call? Can I ask you a question? People are out to help.
Great. And what value do you think a young professional should provide to someone like you or Joe or whoever to kind of offer them value up front so that they're more inclined to help them out?
There's not necessarily mutual value that I'm not saying that, trying to say that in any way in an arrogant way. I'm not saying it for me, but for someone else. You try to reach out to, I don't know, any big person. You try to reach out to Steven Schwartzman of Blackstone. What value are going to add for him? Nothing. It's just going to be more of them wanting to help out and having the opportunity to speak to someone and help out.
And do you think young professionals that offer kind of like energy and this inquisitive nature about them is kind of what industry veterans kind of value?
Yeah,
want to see?
Definitely. Show that you're interested. Show that you know what you're talking about. Don't just come in blindly. Be at least somewhat well informed or well read about the subject that you're going to be talking about. Even if you're there to learn, you can ask. You can read a lot, but you can still get a lot of insightful details and information from someone. But don't waste someone's time by just not knowing what you're going to talk about or not know the subject that you're there to discuss.
So have good questions prepared before.
Yeah, have good questions. Say some details that you can explain. I know this. Show that you've spent your time on your own into this. And you're really interested in it.
Great. And so I want to ask more about specific things within commercial real estate. So what are your thoughts on the rising popularity of real estate private equity deal structures? And do you think this trend will continue to grow in the coming years?
Yeah, as long as there's always people that want to invest in real estate.
Right.
As long as people are making money in real estate. And as long as on the sponsor side, as long as they can raise money and take other people's money, that's always going to stay. And maybe not at this specific moment, but long term, yeah, for sure. I mean, a dentist, a doctor, an accountant, whatever is going to want to invest in real estate, right? It's passive income, it's a tangible asset. The market goes up and down, but long term, if you're buying something for 10 years, you generally should be up on your acquisition if you have a long-term horizon. You get some money on the side while doing it. So I definitely think real estate private equity will stay, probably expand. I also think those crowdsourcing websites make it even easier for companies to raise money. So I think it's more accessible for people to raise money and more accessible for people to invest. So I definitely think there's a long-term future in private equity.
Do you think, so for the next 10 to 20 years, almost everyone's going to have access to investing in real estate, like, for example, large developments in Manhattan or something like that, where everyone kind of has access to invest?
Even, I don't necessarily know about large developments in Manhattan, but you have seen, New York-based crowdsourced deals, crowd-funded deals. The business has done well. I mean, obviously there's certain deals that go south, and will, not necessarily, or generally not as a result of the company doing the
Right.
crowdsourcing. But yeah, as long as people have an opportunity to invest in an asset that they like, whether it's a development, which is high risk, high reward, or just something stable that's going to give you 5-6% on your money, and you just
100%.
you're part of a triple net leased asset,
Right.
or just a rental building that has income. If people have access to it, they're going to invest in it.
100%. And what real estate asset class or property type do you see potential for in the coming decade?
Define potential. Like, what do I think is going to continuously be successful?
No, like what's down now and underappreciated now that in the next 10 to 20 years can be seen in a different light. For example, like office buildings.
You can't really tell. I mean, people are very down on office right now. Will it change? Maybe a little. Class A office is obviously always going to be good. Class B office, I think some of that will need to be converted into residential or some different use, because work from home, I won't say it's here to stay, but there's definitely something there. People always come to Manhattan, I think, as long as the government doesn't, continue to do stupid stuff and push people out.
Right.
But work from home is here to stay. You need more residential space or apartments in the city. So there's a good reason to start allowing certain conversions. I mean, it's similar to, and I wasn't in the industry back then. I was sort of there at the tail end. But in the financial district in the late 90s, all these Class B office buildings were vacant, and I think it was the Giuliani administration that came in with a plan, the 421G tax abatement, which offered landlords an incentive, a tax incentive, to convert Class B office building into apartments. It was a very successful program. A lot of buildings downtown are now converted. I think it added 10 to 15,000, maybe some. I don't remember the number, but something like that, like real units. It turned it into a neighborhood as opposed to a ghost town, which it was apparently in the mid 90s. And again, I was too young. I never went down there, but I remember, when I first worked for Joe, I was working on some of the projects down there in, the year 2000, and you could see the real transformation of what it was versus what it is now. So I think that's going to have to be done in Midtown, in these central office districts that have Class B space that right now no one's leasing. And if for a lease to be done, it's probably going to cost $20 a foot, but your operating costs are higher than $20 a foot. So something has to be done there.
So do you think these tax incentives are really how the government can step in and amend situations and cause real change?
Definitely. I mean, every time that the government doesn't renew the 421A, there's no development. And then, you're behind the curve again. And there's no development. And then you have a shortage of housing and a shortage of low income or mid income housing. And then you bring it back and you get development, and the cycle just goes over and over. Just, what you need to do. Unfortunately, politics and the rabble rousers, get their say.
Right. So I want to ask, what's been your favorite deal that you've ever worked on?
I'll tell you a deal I've been a part of, or a couple of deals. One was an investor and, someone who early on, before my friend, principal, acquired it. It's a property in Washington Heights. That was a marketed deal. It was a self-operated parking lot that was self-managed and was getting some cash flow, and a school that was on a month-to-month lease. And it was acquired for $20 million, but everyone looked at it only as a development site, which it was. What my friend, the principal, did was he negotiated the month-to-month lease with the Board of Ed, the city, to a long-term 15-year lease.
Okay.
Created value in the building as a long-term triple net leased asset. Got a good rent on the property. got the valuation of that building to about, if I remember correctly, about 20 million, which is what he bought the entire development site for, refied, and took out about 16 to 17 million dollars.
Great.
But when with transferring the air rights, there's about a 200,000 square foot development site there that, you know, we're now in it for, you know, basically nothing.
That's great.
So that's one deal that I really liked that I was a part of. Another deal was during COVID. Me, Tony, and Francesco saw a building in Murray Hill, a corner building that was for sale, also a marketed deal. But it was during COVID and everyone was scared. The retail was vacant, and I'd say the broker or everyone that looked at the deal had undervalued what the retail was worth. We had an exclusive a few blocks from there on something similar in size. And we, excuse me, we saw the clients. We had been meeting a lot of clients. We knew what it was worth, and we knew that the retail was worth a lot more than what the seller was valuing the retail up for. So we went into contract. We had a few retailers. We had a bidding war on the retail. And when we closed, we had a retail lease signed with a great retailer at, I'd say about, you know, 25-30% over in the retail value over what was anticipated or underwritten at.
That's
so
great.
There was immediate value add that we were able to create there.
That's awesome.
On that deal.
And how would you describe your investment strategy now, and how has it changed over time?
We're much more value add based and understanding, understanding what's needed for value add, and understanding, really knowing where we can add value with our expertise, primarily with the retail connections we have. Knowing what retail rents are worth, knowing, you know, that we have if we have a retailer in our back pocket. Just so you know, a lot of landlords that I work with, before they buy stuff, you know, again, it's all about trust. They'll say to me, "Hey, Elad, please don't tell anyone. We're looking at this deal.
Right.
What is the retail worth? And do you have a retailer?" And very often, you know, just obviously we have a meeting amongst ourselves within our team, and we say, "Listen, this guy's going to buy this. Who do we have for him, and what can we get them?" So forget ourselves. Landlords, buyers, private equity companies, a lot of them do bounce ideas off us, both with valuation when they're underwriting deals, and seeing if we can, you know, bring the retail and add that immediate value for them at closing.
100%. And how does creativity play a role in real estate? Can you think back to a time where you kind of came up with a out-of-the-box solution?
I used to share an office with my cousin, Johnny Zamir, who's like my brother. And he was doing real estate private equity and raising money for deals and looking at deals. And, you know, when he'd look at a deal, he'd always, you know, ask my opinion, or just, you know, we just mess around and talk through deals. And he was looking at one deal, 202 Canal Street, which was a marketed deal. It was owned by ICBC Bank. I think same thing. It was sort of a month-to-month lease. It was a sale lease back with, maybe they were taking, they were going to do a month-to-month lease or something like that. But it was a partial sale lease back. But the building ultimately would be delivered, would be vacated a certain amount of time. And everyone just looked at it at a certain way. And you know what, my cousin really thought out of the box here, and he called the bank. And it's the same thing with the negotiating, right? You know, you have to understand
the other party
and what they want. So he had a connection, or he reached out to someone at the bank and said, "Listen, I'm looking at this building. Please explain to me what you're understanding. What do you really want? I know you want a certain price, but what do you really want? Do you want to stay in the building? Do you want to stay upstairs? Do you want to stay downstairs?" And he understood that the bank didn't want the upstairs of the building, but they wanted to stay in the retails. They had a very, very high amount of deposits, and it was a great location for them. So he had been speaking to them. He had negotiated similar to what my friend did at Edgecombe, but he negotiated a 15-year lease with the bank
Great.
for the retail. Realized that if he bought the building and condoed the building and separated it, he could sell the retail based off of the income on a cap rate, on a triple net lease deal.
That's great.
He could sell it for basically the purchase price of the building.
Right.
So that's what he did. He negotiated a 15-year lease. He was awarded the deal. He came in, obviously he also came in higher than the other bidders.
Right.
I don't think anyone understood how he was able to come so high,
Right.
but he had this lease that he really thought out of the box, and he had this lease in his back pocket that was really able to create extra value out of thin air that nobody saw. And that's really how you're able to separate yourself or differentiate
That's
yourself on deals. You have to
Thinking
really
out of the
think
box.
out of the box.
So what drives you nowadays? Is it money, personal achievement, family, philanthropy? And when would you say you've succeeded?
Family drives me the most. You know, I'm blessed to have a beautiful, lovely wife and 4 amazing kids. I love every minute of the day I have with them. I do most of the stuff I do is for them, for our family. You know, I work hard to be able to, you know, provide for them and for my kids for their future.
Right.
I'd say that's what really motivates me the most. I guess you could, I won't say money, but you know that's part of that's part of what you need to do.
Yeah.
Philanthropy is very important. I think everyone should be involved to the extent that they can. Both with donating, but just as important with volunteering or spending time. And if you can't donate, then spend time. It's even better
Right.
if you're able to, you know, give your time to a certain cause and really go out of your way and help people. So
That's
I
amazing.
think philanthropy is very important as well. Yeah.
Amazing. And I have my final question to wrap it up.
Sure.
What advice would you give your 22-year-old self about life, business, and relationships?
Put yourself out there. Meet people. Don't be shy.
Right.
I was definitely still shy, or you know, back then I was shy. Didn't put myself out there as much as I could have.
Right.
I had my closer, and not to say that I wouldn't talk to people, but you know, you have your close friends, and you should always have your close group of friends.
Of
But you should always be out there. You should be networking. You should be meeting people. You should be setting goals for yourself 3, 5, 7 years, and always thinking and looking back and saying and thinking forward, but
Right.
saying, what am I doing now to get myself to where I need to be 3, 5, 7 years from now? Is it always going to happen to plan? No, but you need to set goals for yourself. You need to keep meeting people. It's really just networking. I can't emphasize how important networking is.
Right.
And there's a way to do it. There's, you know, some people just go to networking events and hand out business cards and, you know,
Not personal
to
enough.
each his own, you know, do it in your own way, figure out what works for you, but do it right. And, you know, some people, again, like to just, you know, do guerrilla marketing and just really just go everywhere. And some people, you know, have, you know, 3, 4 conversations with good people that you can cultivate into
Right.
something really long-term and helpful. And always think about, you know, your financial independence. That's look to invest, look at how you can invest, look at how you can get passive income. You know, as I've read, the older I've got, or the more I read, you know, you keep reading then it's really true. So, you know, whether or not you're working for yourself or working for someone, you know, always look at how you can do, you know, something extra. For me, I love being my own boss. I think it's great. Some people don't like that. You know, if your goal is to work for yourself, you know, then work hard, learn a lot, and network.
Amazing. Elad, this has been a great podcast.
I hope so.
I
Thank
really
you.
hope that young professionals watching this
I hope so.
will get some
I
value
would,
from
I
this
would
and
love
apply
to
it to their
help
career.
people if I can, and I appreciate
Thank you so much.
the invitation and the time. Thank
Really
you.
appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Great.